The situation on the ground in Charleston is obviously ever-changing and tensions are rising. The brass here, Glenn Beck, is actually planning on being there tomorrow. But for now, we still have a lot of questions and relying very much on the reports coming out from the local news agencies who are there. Now, Chris Haire is the editor of the Charleston City paper. He joins me now for the latest developments. Chris, thank you so much for joining me. Obviously, this has been a gut punch to the community. This is an atrocity. I mean, it's an act of terror. I don't know how else to describe it. And obviously, there's still a lot of questions that remain, and I'm sure that the investigation, they're going to see these questions out. But from what I have seen, Chris, is that in numerous reports that this individual, this murderer, it seemed to be, from those who went to school with him, he was a known bigot. He was racially motivated with this crime. It is being investigated as a hate crime. What else can you tell us about that?
At this point, we know very little. I mean, there have been photos that have come out. Obviously, you got the photograph that you're showing right there with him with the South African patch and the Rhodesian patch. There have been another photo circulating of him with a Confederate flag on the front of the license plate. That is not, all that uncommon here in South Carolina, particularly in the upstate of South Carolina. But we don't really know a lot officially at this point. I guess a lot will be coming out tomorrow, more and more about him as the focus shifts away from the victims over onto why he did what he did.
Right. It was reported that his father gave him a .45 caliber pistol. Do we know if that was the weapon that was used in the shooting?
There has been no confirmation on that at one point. There is a note, one report where the uncle appears to have been the person to have ID'd him and was the one who noted that there was a gun that was given.
Was he on any prescription medication? I had read at one point that he was a pill popper. According to someone that knew him, he was a pill popper. He was a heavy drug user. He had already been charged with trespassing, which was a misdemeanor. I saw that he was charged with possession, but I don't know if that was a conviction, if it was misdemeanor or felony. What can you tell us about his record?
We don't know anything other than the trespassing and then the drug charge.
Was that a felony or a misdemeanor charge?
I don't recall if it was a felony or a misdemeanor. It could be a misdemeanor. Drug sentences or drug charges actually can be very, very light.
Right, right. And obviously, no one in his family has said anything aside from the uncle, correct?
As far as I know.
How is the Emmanuel Church, Emmanuel AME? They released the names of the victims, amongst those Pastor Clementa Pinckney, state senator as well. I saw earlier that his desk in the rotunda had been draped with a black shard, and they put roses, or they put flowers on his desk. That is, I can't even imagine. I cannot even imagine, Chris. I almost don't have the words, and here I'm talking to you professionally for a living. In terms of the victims, tell me tell me what it is like there for the community right now, because I'm in Dallas, and as horrible as it seems from where I am in Dallas, I'm not there in Charleston, and I can imagine, obviously, they're feeling it a lot worse at this historic church.
They are, but part of the shock is the way that it happened last night. With people first kind of getting little inklings of what was going on and then hearing stuff through Twitter, social media, through people they knew. Local TV really wasn't covering it very much at all. People really didn't seem to even know what was happening. And then around about 11 o'clock or so, then all the information really started coming out, and it kept trickling out for the next few hours. This morning, everyone is devastated. There have been private vigils, there have been public vigils, there have been packed houses, there has been singing. So far there have been no protests, but the protests are coming at this point. But the whole town is pretty grief-stricken, particularly in light of the fact of the Walter Scott shooting a month ago. Yeah. This town is still pretty much kind of reeling from that, and I think some of the racial legacy that the town has tried to get past is now coming back and into play, and we're having to deal with that all over again in many ways because we haven't really dealt with it for a long time.
Last quick question for you, and I have seen various reports on this. Was it true that the murderer sat in the church with those conducting Bible study for like an hour before this happened?
It appears to be that's the case. The reports that I've read is that he actually sat beside the pastor and sat there for a while. which is pretty eerie that he's just sitting there. It's quite bizarre. The timestamp, I think, indicates him showing up there maybe 8:09 or something like that, walking through the door, and then the shootings happen around 9. But it's just really eerie that he's sat in there with them, and that they, that who knows what was going through their head at that point, and what words were exchanged. We know that he did make some pretty vile comments about black people raping all the white women and that sort of thing, which is just just horrible.
Right. Well, our prayers are with Charleston, and I know it's your media there, and I know it's definitely not easy to cover a story like this in your town.
It's not. Everyone's been scrambling. Everyone's been scrambling all day long.
Chris, God bless you. Thank you so much. You can find him at Haire of the Dog on Twitter, editor, Charleston City Paper. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Folks, up next, John Lott will join me.